what I'm going to talk about, and I know it's a mouthful, right? Leading, mentoring, and enhancing personal performance with fun. What do you think we're going to talk about, other than raises? Fun. We're going to talk about some fun stuff and how we get to there, okay? And so one of the first things that we need to do to understand ourselves as a mentor or performer in anything that we take care of, we need to understand ourselves, right? What are the things that motivate us? What are our tendencies, our preferences, our strengths, and our weaknesses? So we're going to dig into some of those tendencies because some of them happen so automatically that maybe we don't actually get our best as well as we could. So with that, I'd like to ask for a volunteer. Someone who likes spelling, and I promise the words will be very simple. They're maybe 7, 8 letters are the longest ones. And can answer a few simple questions, as well as likes to be kind of competitive. Is everybody competitive in here? I see some hands going up already. Get Riley. I would like a volunteer to please come up and answer some questions. And I say competitive because there is a record time in responding to these, I believe, 7 questions. You want to know who has the record time? Our first round draft pick from last year with the Bucks, O.J. Howard. So he answered these questions in 28 seconds. I trust that one of you is going to be able to beat that time, right? So please, somebody come on up. All right, perfect. Thank you for joining me up here. And it hasn't even happened yet. The thing that's been embarrassing hasn't even happened yet.
Let's roll.
And your name is?
Sandra.
Sandra, very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for volunteering. Now, what we're going to have everybody do is we're going to listen to Sonia's responses, but I want all of you to answer the questions inside your heads yourself as well, okay? Sandra, you don't need their help, right?
No.
Awesome, awesome. So you guys just respond inside your head. Are you ready?
Yes.
Great start, but that wasn't the first question. On your mark, get set, go. What does S-P-O-T spell?
Spot.
What do you do when you come to a green light?
Stop.
What does F-O-L-K spell?
Oak.
What's the white part of the egg called?
Yolk.
What does M-A-C-D-U-F-F spell?
Macduff.
Excellent. What does M-A-C-D-O-N-A-L-D-S spell?
McDonald's.
What does M-A-C-H-I-N-E spell?
McHines.
Outstanding. 23 seconds. How about that? Abby, would you bring that record away? Would you mind joining me over here so we can look at some of these? She did a great job, didn't she? Outstanding. You think we got some wrong?
Yeah.
No. What are you doing with that idea?
I just feel like, you know,
Something might not have gone quite right.
it's kind of like that, what's that one that everyone's doing online now? It's like the...
Oh, the colors and the Laurel
and yes.
Yeah, or Yanny. Laurel or Yanny. Yeah. It's not quite like that, but it's not too far off. So let's just look at this. We asked, what does S-P-O-T spell? And you said?
Spot.
Outstanding. So you got one right, right? And then I said, what do you do when you come to a green light? You said?
Stop.
You live here in Pinellas County, right? We've got some police officers over there too. So let's get you going through those green lights, all right?
Gosh.
Ben, what does F-O-L-K spell?
Oak.
And you said that perfectly. What is the white part of the egg called?
Yellow.
I thought you said yolk.
That's exactly what I said.
But that would be a different answer, right?
Yes.
I actually asked these questions of a person who works for a chemicals company. And so he got the spot, and then he said stop also. I said, what's F-O-L-K said? He said folk. I said, what's the white part of the egg called? And he said, albumin. Completely threw me off. But that is the scientific term for it. But we would take white part of the egg, shell. I even take shell sometimes. So all right, you're doing very well. M-A-C-D-U-F-F. Outstanding. M-A-C-D-U-N-A-L-D-S. Where'd you grow up?
St. Louis.
In St. Louis. I asked that question because sometimes people from different parts of our country pronounce words slightly differently than others, right? Because M-A-C-H-I-N-E, you say that spells McHine, and some people around here pronounce it differently. Thank you very much, Simon. Now, Sandra, understand, you're not alone in this. There are a lot of people here that said the same exact thing that you did, right? Absolutely. And do you know why that happens? Why does that happen? Because the way I spelled it, right? I broke up the Mac and then the H-I-N-E. You know how to spell machine, you know how to pronounce machine, you do all that stuff well. But you kind of got, did I set you up, would you say?
Yeah.
Did anybody think I was standing a little too close to her? I felt a little comfortable standing that close, and I'm standing there with the stopwatch right in her face, right, doing all this stuff. What am I doing? What kind of conditions am I creating for her? Pressure, absolutely. I'm creating pressure for her. And I hate to say this in some ways, but it's also entertaining for me to say this too. As a clinical psychologist, I'm proud to tell you, the laziest organ in your body is what? Your brain. Why'd you say that so quickly? It's true. Why'd you say it?
Just kind of, I've read articles talking about it, something happening to your brain that, some people that have like 20% of their brain are geniuses, and others of us like myself.
Maybe not using all of it.
Yeah.
Right. And also, we like to get in patterns, right? We like to get into patterns of doing things a certain way. And sometimes those patterns are fabulous, right? How much thought do you give now into getting into your car and driving out of your driveway and getting to your destination? Very little, if any. If you're like me, I'm driving out of the driveway while I'm putting my seatbelt on, looking behind. Are my girls with me? Are they supposed to be with me? Where am I going? We'll figure it out on the way, right? But we do this because our patterns serve us well in many, many situations, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they lead us to the wrong answer. And that's why I want you to consider, as a mentor, what are the ways in which you might get stuck in some patterns that may be comfortable to you, but might not necessarily fit the needs of your mentee at that moment. And that's one of the things I want to challenge you to consider, because children are pretty complicated, aren't they? Even if they grow up in your own house and you have them all the time and you have a lot of influence on them, my daughters still shock me with some of the things they say and they do and where this comes from. And I feel like I understand them pretty well, and I get them all the time. So 1 hour a week, it's got to be kind of challenging. So I want you to make sure that we find ways to help you to get out of patterns that might not be working for you and stick with the patterns that are working for you, because both sides are really important. So with performance, I want you to think about this. What time is it? Answer this question for me. 8 o'clock. That's why I see that on the clock there too. That is accurate if we're going to measure it by that. But I'm going to tell you that's not the right answer. Go time. Where are we going? Where are we going? Anywhere? But I like the motivation behind that. I love that. None of the energy. You're right in the sense that it's a word. Time to be successful? I hope so. I hope that that's what we're all doing right now. But there's a simpler answer to this question. Now. Absolutely now. If you answer the question, somebody asks you, what time is it? And you say now, they might think you're being sarcastic, but are you accurate? Absolutely you're accurate. I was sharing this concept with my daughters about being focused on studying and these kinds of things, and I do this with athletes all the time. And my daughter walked away and drew this. Which I was very proud of her in that moment that she created. That's actually on my business card too. So I really think if we can get into this moment of really thinking the time is now, we're going to be so much more effective as mentors, as leaders, as performers in whatever we do. Because especially in this day and age, with my mobile devices over there, but I know mobile devices don't get but an arm length away from us more than not. We have distractions that take us away constantly. Is that fair to say? We may think we're being present, but we're not always being present. And thus, we're going to put this to the test. We're going to put your ability to stay focused in the here and now to the test. And thus, finally, the answer to why am I giving out these raises and asking you not to eat them. So here's what I ask you to do. Does anybody practice mindfulness? I've heard much about mindfulness. All right, some of you. Okay. So mindfulness is really, it's an important part of leadership development now, because it helps us to cope with all of the stressors that we face, to really be present and be focused on what it is that we're trying to do. And it's one thing to talk about the concept. It's another thing to actually try and do it. It's really hard to stay in the moment. So I'm going to walk you through this activity that I hope helps us to find ways to do it even more fully than we typically do, because we get distracted easily. So now, finally, I'd ask you to put that raisin on the palm of your hand. And I'm going to be asking you questions, but I don't want any responses. We'll talk about it afterwards. I just want you to reflect upon the questions. So keep them to yourselves, the answers that you have. I want you to reflect on them yourselves. And I'm also going to ask you to close your eyes at a certain point in time. So what I'd like you right now to do is just look, use your eyes, use the sense of vision to look at the raisin as it sits in the palm of your hand. Really pay attention to it. See what's there. The wrinkles, the textures, it feels like it's on your hand. And now, if you haven't already, with your index finger, start rolling the raisin around in your hand. Using this tactile sense, take notice of exploring the raisin with wonderment, like it's the first time you've ever seen a raisin. Now what I'd like you to do is, if you would, please close your eyes. Close your eyes and pick up the raisin, putting it to your lips, but not putting it in your mouth. Just putting it to your lips with your eyes closed, and feel the sensations as you're moving the raisin on your lips. With it near your nose, please smell it. Use your sense of smell to pull in what it smells like. Remaining with your eyes closed, put it in your mouth. Do not eat it. Roll it around on your tongue. What are the sensations that you experience? Does it smell any different? Now roll it around your teeth. Biting down on it, but not chewing it yet. What does it taste like? What are the sensations? And now finally, still with your eyes closed, begin chewing it. Slowly. Against your teeth and your tongue. Pay attention to it. Take another second, and then feel free to swallow it and open your eyes. Now, I was trying to look at many of you while I was doing that. And I'm sorry, the woman with the black hair right there. The worst time I could have brought attention to you, I apologize for that. You had an expression on your face that suggested you don't like raisins very much. What was the experience like for you?
Uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Gross.
Gross? And what were you paying attention to, even though you didn't like it at all? It was uncomfortable and gross.
What you're saying.
What I was saying. And was attention being paid to the raisin as well? Mm-hmm. Okay. Were you thinking about what you have to do later today?
No.
No?
No.
Were you thinking about some of the challenges you faced yesterday?
No.
Were you thinking about anything that is important to you other than what your sensations were, negative though they may be, in experiencing that raisin?
Just the wrinkly raisin.
Just the wrinkly raisin. So even when it's something that's unpleasant, where was she focused? I'm sorry, your name?
Janice.
Where was Janice focused? What time? In the now, right? In the now. Now, I hope not everybody had such an unpleasant experience. And Janice, I'm truly sorry that it was unpleasant for you. What was the experience like for many of you? Let's hear from some of you. Really? Yes, because you're really connecting, silly as it may sound, with that raisin, right? You're so attentive to that raisin. Outstanding. Other people? Please.
You know, I realize that I inhale my food.
Yes.
So I don't have to think about eating.
Yes.
In the sense that, you know, I just want to get it done.
Right.
And this really reminded me that, you know, I really need to pay attention.
We don't live in the here and now very well at all. It's what's next. Well, how can I get through this quickly? What can I do to get to point A to point B as fast as possible so I can get on to that next thing? As if some reason the future or where we have to get to next is better than where we are right now. Is that true to say? One more person. Any other experience with the raisin?
Similar, however, for me it was, that's the most flavorful raisin that I've ever had.
I think I must inhale too.
Yes. And you're not alone in that. Did other people have that experience that the raisin was more flavorful? Whether you like it or not, it was more flavorful? And that's because we are fully engaged in it. And this is an activity that I do with athletes all the time. In fact, I send a text with pictures like this to players before games after we do this. I want you to be raisin focused today. I want you to really get out there and have this notion of nothing matters that's going to happen next. It's just what's right now. Because I've just mentioned to you that I have 2 daughters, right, and a wife. So I'm going to ask you this. Who are the most important people in my life right now? My daughters and my wife, right? They are the most important people in my life. I agree wholeheartedly. They're not the most important people in my life right now. Why? Because I'm not with them. And thus, who are the most important people in my life right now? You are, exactly, because you're the people I'm with, the people I'm engaging with, the folks that I can have a sense of connection to. And if we can live our lives in these ways just a little bit longer each day, I think that we, A, are more resilient, we're healthier, we're happier, and we're better at what we do, especially when we're mentoring. Now, I bet many of you do that already. That child is the most important person in your life during that time. And yet still, we can get hijacked. Our thoughts and our reactions can get hijacked to being involved with other stuff. And so what I really want you to do is feel that sense of whatever you're doing. If you're brushing your teeth, if you're biting that steak that you really love, whatever that favorite food may be, if you're engaging, and one of my daughters always make fun of me for this because they see that I really don't like tax season very much. I'm not detail-oriented. I have to put all this stuff together in an organized way. And I try to even tell myself, I'm going to love doing my taxes right now. Sometimes it takes more work to get there than others, right? But I really want you to consider, are you as here and now focused as you can be? And practicing being in the here and now is the only way to really stay in the here and now on a regular basis. And so to help consider that, I'll tell you my favorite phrase in all sports psychology that I learned, and it is this. Elite or optimal performance requires us to pay attention to performance-relevant aspects of our attentional field. It's a mouthful, huh?
Yes.
Performance-relevant aspects of our attentional field. It's a really fancy way of saying what? Focus on? On what you're doing right now, the things that are relevant, right? So there are certain skills that we have to have, regardless of what it is. If I'm writing, if I'm doing taxes, if I'm engaging with family members or a mentee, if I'm leading, if I'm trying to make a basket, or if I'm trying to throw a football, I have to pay attention to the things that are there. So in mentoring, it's really focusing on what their needs are. What do they want right now? It actually requires us to suspend our own interests and our own needs, even though, as I appreciate the way Susan was saying it, so many people feel like I get more out of this than I think I give. Their needs are what's essential. The focus in the here and now, and being aware of the distractors. The distractors are the things that bring us to saying stop at a green light. Okay? That's the stuff we want to be aware of. And so I have this little way I think about this, which is a GPS of unstoppable performance. Regardless of what it is, whatever the performance is, we need to have a game plan, we need to have passion, and we need to have the skills necessary to be able to perform at our best. Because if we don't plan what we're going to do, we're going to end up in some places that we didn't really expect to be. And while that's necessary when we're especially engaging with children, it's important for us to be thoughtful about what we're going to do to get there. So I'm going to break these down. I'm going to ask you to think about and respond to some of the questions, at least in your mind, and maybe get to them a little bit later as well. So pretty simple. What are your skills, right? Are your skills sharp? So when you think about yourself as a mentor, right? Are your skills as sharp as they need to be for elite performance in whatever aspect of your life it is? You tell me whether or not some of these mental and technical skills, if you possess them when you're with your mentees, as fully as possible. How confident are you that you can really relate to some of these kids? You know, there's a lot. You know who talks to you more than anybody else in the world? Who talks to you more than anybody else in the world? Yourself. So that conversation you're having inside of your head about, oh my God, I don't understand, what are they talking about? Why do they keep talking about Fortnite? It's constant. Are we at the Fortnite level with some of your mentees? No? Some yes, some no? But are they talking about things that you don't feel as comfortable or confident that you understand? Now, I know you're going to go home, you're going to do your homework and figure out what they're talking about. But it's important for us to accept, I may not feel 100% confident with this child who may be very different from me. And how do I feel centered in who I am so that I can relate to them fully? Do we have that here and now that we've discussed? And mentally, how open am I to their experience? Am I here feeling like I need to direct them and they have to go in this direction? Or am I going to gently lead from behind? Am I going to accept that they have these different choices and challenges in their life? And am I going to say, no, you have to go here? Or am I going to lead them to the place of safety and security and learning and success? And I think we have to be open to say, sometimes kids aren't always going to make the right decision or the best decisions in that moment, but how do I stay with them in a meaningful way? Do I have the technical skills? Those of you that were here when Margaret Cooley, a colleague of mine, was here, she did a listening activity with many of you. And we may think, oh yeah, I listen well, but it's a lot harder. I get paid to listen for as a profession, right? And yet my wife will oftentimes tell me, you're not listening to anything I'm saying. It may look like I am, but I know I'm not, right? So we had to get out of that spousal listening mode and really listening at a level of the other person's more important than me, listening with a third ears, as I describe it. So you can reflect upon that. Is my empathy there? Do I really feel not sympathetic for them, but really fully engaged and empathic for them? Am I taking their perspective and am I consistently there? So I would challenge you each to do a relatively self-critical view of, am I doing all these things? And what are the skills that I need to improve upon? Because this is one of my favorite things when I think about a game plan. John Wooden said failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So, how do you prepare for your mentoring meetings? How do you prepare when you go there? Do you have a game plan before? Like, what do you do to get there? I know that my life and everybody's lives get very busy. Am I running out of the car and jumping in and trying to get to the kid just in time and be able to be there? Or am I actually taking time to reflect about what we discussed last time? What they were thinking and feeling, what the challenges were that they were going through. So what is my game plan before I meet with them? What's my game plan for when I'm meeting with them? What am I doing? What's my game plan for how I'm going to engage them today, right, in the here and now? And then, what is your game plan for your own reflection? How many of you actually reflect and maybe in a journal a little bit about some of the experiences you have with them? Some hands are going up. I would challenge more hands to go up. I would challenge you to write about the experience because there's a quote I just heard recently, and it was something to this effect. I'm not detail-oriented, so I don't remember exactly, but it's something to this effect. How am I expected to know what I think if I haven't written about it yet? How am I expected to know what I think if I haven't written about it yet? So I really challenge you. Put together, here's some of the things that we're going to do today. Here's what I want to accomplish in the meeting. This is what we need to prepare. And let me reflect upon it and see if there's any challenge, if there's any improvement. And then lastly, passion. We have to love what we're doing, right? I know you don't get involved in an activity like this. This is not a hard sell, right? You don't get involved in an activity like this if you're not passionate about the children. And so for us to perform at our best, we have to love it, even if it's hard. Because sometimes the hard stuff is what makes it even better anyway, right? And so fun is a byproduct of us doing that. So what is your why? Have you reflected on why it is that I'm doing this? What is your passion for mentoring? Where does that come from? What is it born out of? Does it allow me to tell stories with my student, with my mentee, about myself that are relevant without dominating the conversation? Those types of things. And have my passion for engaging with the person themselves and passion for the cause, what this is about. Reflecting on some of these energizes us. And that's what we really want to get to, is that energized space. So if you do a serious and thorough self-assessment, is my passion fully there? Because my passion will lead me to get in there with greater smiles, get in there with the sense of wonderment and curiosity. Because there's one thing, one skill, one technical thing, I guess you can call it a technical thing in this model, that all mentees and leaders must have. The word that begins with C, curiosity. If you go into any interaction with a child, especially a child, anybody you're leading, with a sense of certainty, I know exactly what this person needs, I know exactly what I have to do here, I'd say you're not going to be at your best. You're not going to have as much fun. Because of the wonderment that you get when you're curious and you hear some of the things they say, right? I'm sure you each have moments like that you can reflect upon, and hopefully you'll journal about next time so that you can share with them how important they are. They're so important to you that you wrote about them in your experience and you shared with them how you've been thinking about them throughout the week. Does that make some sense?
I was going to say, a friend of mine said she looks at children as teachers.
Yes. Yes. They know so much about the world they live in that we don't experience anymore. And just because we were there, I know for myself, many, many years ago, doesn't mean that they're experiencing the same thing. So that curiosity and wonderment brings joy and fun to all of this. And I love this quote: "Nothing great in the world has been accomplished without passion." You're not going to be your best. You're not going to impact them at the level that you want to be, in the way that you want to, without having done that. Experiencing that passion, that here and now focus, that raising focus, and keeping in mind what you're doing right now is the most important thing in your life. That's the essence of fun, here and now focus, and passion. Thank you very much for your attention. I think I hit the time frame.